และไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยหยุ่นช่วงนี้ต้องไปฟังบทสัมภาษณ์ Exclusive ครับคุณเทพชายองจับเข่าคุยกับอันวาอิบราฮิมแกนนำสำคัญของฝ่ายค้านมาเลเซียซึ่งมีปัญหามากมายกับนายกรัฐมนตรีนายิบ ราซักศาลเพิ่งตัดสินให้เขาจำคุกในคดีเพศวิตฐานรวมไปถึงอนาคตทางการเมืองของเขาซึ่งหลายคนในมาเลเซียบอกว่าเขานี่แหละจะเป็นนายกรัฐมนตรีมาแทนนายิบ ราซักได้แต่เมื่อเจอคดีอย่างนี้อนาคตการเมืองเขาเป็นอย่างไร
Coming back to your political future, now you're facing a prospect of going back to jail. Are you fearful? You have been in jail before.
Yeah, but of course you're getting on with time. You're no longer young. You have gone through what you thought is the worst, and you had always thought it's over. But because you continue to persevere in the path for freedom and reform, then of course you have to battle against the corrupt and the unjust. So I have actually overcome fear. You know, I was in London a fortnight ago and to attend this meeting with former Vice President Al Gore and Mary Robinson and contact some, UK personalities and university dons. Most of them, if not all of them, have advised me to stay back in London because there's no point coming back to jail. They all know.
Staying back in London means seeking exile.
Taking exile. Because they say going back means you're not getting a fair trial and they know they will be condemned to jail. But I, without hesitation, have decided to come back. But this is my country.
And probably that is what the Najib government wants too.
Well, I think they prefer me to go out, to leave, I mean, they prefer me to be outside.
That's right.
Yeah. But I, to the contrary, believe that I have, all my life been here and fighting for reform in this country. We are lagging behind in many ways. We used to be better economically. We have lost out. Thailand with all this commotion and battle red, yellow shirts for years, but still you are able to sustain economically and moving, probably at a slower pace. But we are behind. So there are problems of issues of governance, of the endemic corruption, and I think people like me have a small role to play. But I have to overcome fear. And overcome fear to me is a great achievement.
And the supporters, they all agree that you should stay behind and lead the fight from inside the country, not from outside.
Well, many of my supporters who are passionate about, even those who are passionate about reform, feel that it's okay, they can accept if I choose to stay overseas, because they feel, probably they'll be equally disheartened or sad if I got to endure this prison sentence again. But I told them, look, I'm here and committed, I'll continue.
So what will happen next? You lost a chance to stand in a by-election in Selangor that would have provided you with a springboard, for a big political role. And now you're facing a prospect of being jailed again. So what will happen next? What kind of fight will you lead?
What will be que sera. But I think it's important to realize that you see, we have our plans. God disposes, of course. We believe in that. But I don't believe the authoritarian leaders, the corrupt leaders should believe that they have the final say. I continue to persevere inside or outside prison. And I've never, what keeps us going? Of course, it's faith, it's conviction. But also you trust in the wisdom of the people. In this country, as neighbors, you should know that without a media, without the resources, with electoral fraud, we still could garner 50 52% of the popular vote. Can you imagine if the elections is free? If I have at least half an hour of airtime on television, if the election, is run in the independent, we would garner easily 60%. Everybody says that. Some people, even some observers say even minimum 58%, which will be seen as a resounding victory. But it did not happen because everybody knows electoral fraud. And the fact there's no media. Can you call it a democracy, a democratic elections, when we don't have 1 minute of airtime? No, it is not. Of course, diplomats will come to say thank you, it is a great democracy. Malaysia is a Muslim, moderate, democratic country. They must be reading a different text.
Now, in the aftermath of the election last year, you were successful in bringing out a lot of people to your rallies, to protest against the election. But the demonstrations, the rallies, fizzle out. Does it mean that you have come to accept, the election result as a fait accompli now, that there's nothing you can do to change it, and streets and protests will not really lead to anything concrete?
Not really, because our decision was to have rallies, not to go to the street. And rallies means we assemble at 8, we depart at 11. So that was the time. And some of the rallies are huge from Malaysian standards, unprecedented and huge. To register that protest, and then we say go to the court, but you know the courts in the country. Some of decisions just absurd. Not only we lost all the cases, but we are penalized, and we have now to pay millions of payment to the court because it's a system. But we had to then consider. We know what happened in Bangkok or Ukraine. It's a decision. It's an option that we have. But at that particular time, we thought, okay, we register this. It's powerful enough a message, so let's back off a bit, hoping that Najib would respond. So at the same time, we say, why do we have a dialogue? So unlike the Thai situation, here we in the opposition are calling for a dialogue. And even we talk about reconciliation in terms of what is the position on economy, on race, on religion, where it is becoming a bit rancorous, the exchange amongst people. There was no response. Can you imagine? I was opposition leader from 2008. I cannot get an appointment to see the Prime Minister even once.
สายการบินมาเลเซีย Mh370 เครื่องบินหายร่องรอย ไม่มีร่องรอยใดๆเหลืออยู่เลยนี่อันวาอิบราฮิมมีทฤษฎีอย่างไร และเมื่อโอบามามาเยือนมาเลเซียทำไมโอบามาไม่ยอมเจอเขาผิดหวังไหมแปลว่าสหรัฐกำลังเลือกข้างใช่หรือไม่ต้องฟังคำตอบเด็ดๆของอันวาอิบราฮิมครับ
It has been almost 2 months now since the disappearance of the Malaysian Airlines flight Mh370, and up to now there are no indications that the plane can be located. Of course, you have spoken out very strongly on things that you see as the lack of efficiency, incompetence of the Najib government in handling the issues. You talk about possible cover-ups. So what's your theory on this?
Well, it is a tragedy not only to the crew and the passengers and their families, but it also opens up the major flaws in our opaque system of governance, not transparent and accountable. But people ask me what actually happened. It's very difficult to understand when there is huge cover-ups. I know the government is angry when I say that.
Yeah.
But I know about the radar, and I've said it publicly. That was procured when I was Minister of Finance, although the decision was the Defence Minister, Dr. Sri Najib. But I know the system, the Makoni system. I know it is a very sophisticated system. It's comparable to the Thai radar system. You can read, we can't read. Then until today, other than the radar, the Makoni radar system in Gong Kedah, we have not released the cargo manifest, except to say 4 tons of mangosteen. I mean, the Thais laugh about it, the Malaysians and the Indonesians, because we know it is not in season, and we can't get 4 tons easily in an off-season. And other than that, there's a lithium battery, and there's no cargo manifest. It is not possible. Passenger list, cargo manifest is always there in all flights. Why are we hiding it? And the third, of course, the Interpol's information that there were stolen passports given also to Malaysia, and we overlook that.
When you say cover-ups, so you're saying that there are things that the government know but are not telling the public.
Oh, surely. I mean, radar is known to the government. Cargo manifest is known to the government. And this has happened in the past. You know, we have a case some years back where 2 jet engines went missing, and there's no one accountable. There's also a case in the past, in the murder of the Mongolian model Altantuya, when there's no record in the immigration. When she came in, when she left, there's no record, which means this tradition of an opaque system of cover-up has happened many times in the past, but it does not affect or interest the international community until Mh370.
So you're saying that with the system of sophisticated radar, it's not possible that the plane just disappear into nowhere.
It's not possible. It's a very sophisticated radar. The place is called Gong Kedah, you know, south of Patani in Kelantan, Terengganu, and it is placed near the South China Sea, and very sophisticated system that can read from the border of south of Thailand to the central Malaya, South China Sea to the Indian Ocean, except if they are kites. I can understand.
Yeah.
But if they are huge planes, or even small plane like Cessna, low or high, their capacity was such. And this sophisticated radar, Makoni, was in place to replace an old system, which also could read, you know, but this one is much better. They say we're probably the staff, Air Force staff was asleep. While if that is so, you know, the beep is so loud that you must hear. Now, even you don't hear, you have a recording of the radar.
Yeah.
And it crossed 5 provinces, you know, Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang, Perak, Kedah, Penang, in our heartland. It is a major security problem if the government say they cannot read.
You have your own theory on what happened?
Now, my theory, other than concealing information and cover-up, I don't know. Beyond that.
But for a period at the beginning, I mean, there were attempts to try to politicize this thing. I mean, trying to link the captain of the flight, Sahari Ahmad Shah. I mean, simply because he is a cardholder, I mean, carrying member of your party and a distant relative of yours. And so why all of a sudden this thing has been politicized that way?
Yeah, because I thought, this was about 7 hours after the conviction by the Court of Appeal, which is, one of the fastest decision, which is a record in this country. But then, 7 hours later, Zahari, who was a pilot, then took off, and they therefore allege, while I do not deny, he is a card-carrying member or an active member of the party. He has been known to be expressing his views against the fraud in the elections, the corruption in this country, and supporting reform. He supports democratic transition. He supports free elections, which means he is against any sort of extremist, fanatical, or terrorist activity. So they tried in a few days, but I think when the whole international media went after them to see how absurd, insane for them to just cast aspersions like that, they all backed off. They said, no, we are not saying any link to political activity, Anwar is exploiting this. all blogs, UMNO blogs, all Malaysian media made reference to the fact Zahari was upset, and Zahari is a fanatical supporter of UMNO.
It's quite interesting that the foreign media come to you, the opposition leader, instead of going to the government for comments, for information on what happened with Mh370. Why so?
Well, they came to me after a few days. Firstly, because the link, the government or their outfit, the media, the members of parliament tried to link Zahari to me. But more important is because there was a lack of transparency and accountability on the part of the government. There is now a perception, legitimate arguments adduced to support the case that the Prime Minister came for a press conference and refused to take questions. It is the first Prime Minister in the world that we know who refused to take questions because they are familiar with only the UMNO control, government control, compliant media will not ask questions, will just kiss their hands and go. But in this case, they have to face other than the nation, CNN, BBC, and the Chinese, Indian. So they feel that, and there are some of the questions they cannot answer. So because of the failure of the Prime Minister Najib and his administration, flip-flop, not giving the truthful answer, changing the following day, they come to me. And fortunately, I happen to know about the radar. You see, and I know the system, I know the name, I know the place. And of course, I did not deny the fact I know Zahari, and he is related to my daughter-in-law, which I didn't deny. But my relatives, just because they are my relatives, they cannot be all hijackers.
I'm sure you must have been following what happens on the Bangkok streets. I mean, the demonstrations, the rallies. I mean, but Thais, many Thais believe that they can bring about changes. I mean, by doing that. I mean, marching on the streets. But of course, there are people who believe that changes should be made only through the ballot boxes. This is quite a dilemma, I mean, for society like Thailand at the moment. But looking at the situation from Malaysia and compared with what's happening here, how do you see it?
No, going through what I have gone through, I understand and empathize with the Thai phenomena or the reformacy in Jakarta. You know why? Because where do you go? You lodge a police report, you go and wait for the elections. Well, at least in Thailand, whatever you may say, the media does give some latitude to both parties. We don't have. So when people say, why look at Thailand, I can understand. Because if they say, you just don't talk about elections. I mean, if I have $1 billion in my constituency, I mean, I'm going to win. So you must start with making sure the electoral process is very clean, and that there is public education. You know, there is a strong law, electoral law, election commission about abuse of power, about corrupt practices, about buying votes, about vote rigging. So I think all these things must be in place. You know, otherwise, you know, give a small country, then you can have one or two big conglomerates, the billionaires, they can fund and you win the elections.
So you're saying that elections are not the only answer to the problems that we are facing in countries like Malaysia and Thailand.
Elections is one of the fundamental pillar, but you are right, it is not the only answer because we will require public education, access to the media, even independent judiciary, because elections, when it's contested, then you got to go to the courts. The courts must be independent. So it is a whole paraphernalia that would require, in what is termed as a democratic system of governance.
So Malaysia has tried to help facilitate peace dialogue between the Thai government and some of the separatist movements in southern Thailand. But the talks have stalled, largely because of the political conflict in Thailand. So what role do you see Malaysia, that Malaysia can play in bringing about at least some form of peace in southern Thailand?
I've always called for this rapprochement, dialogue between the two parties. And with the support, of course, involvement of Bangkok directly. And the Malaysians must be more aggressive. and to show that and give a clear message that we want a peaceful resolution, and not to be seen to be contradictory or conflicting in our messages, to be seen sometimes protecting, sometimes not. I'm very sympathetic. I know many of the friends in Patani and the various groups and the various leaders, and I also sympathize. Quite a number of times I mentioned to our colleagues in Bangkok about the issue of poverty and marginalization, but we should not compromise on the need to have a peaceful resolution to the conflict. They are Thailand, they are Thais. And it has to be acknowledged at that, but violence is not the answer. I'm not saying it's only the problem perpetrated by the Thais, but also some excesses by the military in the past, and sometimes criminal acts, which is using this facade of insurgency in terms of the Patani movement. So I would say that the Thais and the Bangkok initiative, it must be clearly supported strongly, aggressively by the Malaysian government. But the Malaysian government also must utilize people who are quite credible. They can't have people that that some people in Patani would question. I know. I mean, I'm not going through the details, but it must be really credible people, really committed to this sort of peaceful resolution. They must be prepared to surrender arms, and there must be major concession in terms of they feel what they feel is their right in terms of language or culture or religion, which I think is clearly defined in the Thai constitution and supported by most those who believe in freedom and democracy in Thailand. But what I'm saying is that Malaysians must be more aggressive in this, supporting the Thai initiative.
In concrete terms, how aggressive has the Malaysian has to be in showing its seriousness and sincerity in helping Thailand bring about some peace there?
Those groups that we have some influence in, can we call up with the understanding of the Thai government that we want to meet them, support them, assure them that in whatever they think was their legitimate demands, we can just help convey to a friend in Thailand. But also be very firm and tough to suggest to them that no way will we ever condone an armed insurrection or violence, for whatever reasons, because it's going to be chaotic and people will suffer.
I see. Of course, most Thais support the idea of having Malaysia play a role down in the south, but there are also others who question the wisdom of using Malaysia as a broker, because they believe that Malaysia shouldn't be trusted because there are certain elements within Malaysia official dome that support, certain elements of the separatist movement. Do you think this observation is fair?
This is a fair observation. That's why I said at the outset that they must have credible people who are accepted both by the Thais and the Patani people, because there are some Patani people who even question, you guys talk to us and then you release their names, we go back and be arrested. So a matter of trust.
ไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยยุนวันนี้เวลาหมดแล้วครับน่าเสียดายครับเพราะว่ามีเรื่องราวจะมาเล่าเบื้องหลังเรื่องใหญ่ๆเรื่องสำคัญที่น่าตื่นเต้นตื่นตาตื่นใจสำหรับคนไทยแต่ว่าทุกอาทิตย์ครับ1 ทุ่มทาง Nation TV แห่งนี้ครับไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยยุนจะกลับมาพบกับท่านด้วยเบื้องหลังของเหตุการณ์ในประเทศต่างประเทศสัมภาษณ์พิเศษการวิเคราะห์สถานการณ์นักข่าวรุ่นใหม่กับรุ่นผมมาแลกเปลี่ยนและมุมมองต่อข่าวที่แตกต่างกันเพื่อท่านผู้ชมจะได้เห็น2 ภาพ 2 รุ่น 2 จอครับวันนี้ลาไปก่อนครับสวัสดีครับ